I wanted to talk today about Freddy the Magician, which was published in 1947. And of course, this was a book published when Brooks was at his height. It was done just before Freddy Goes Camping, and one of my favorites, I have it right here, Freddy Plays Football. I started to read this book. I never really read it from cover to cover, but a friend of mine some years ago mentioned that he was interested in Freddy only because he had read Freddy the Magician. So I thought it was very timely that I take a look at Freddy the Magician. But I should say that according to our guru on these matters, Michael Cart, he says in his book, Talking Animals and Others, that the plot here is uneven. And I found that Freddy was at times tense and sharp, and there can be some violent scenes. Dave Carley, our founder, said that he does not consider this a very good book in the latest edition of the Bean Home News. But let's talk about the plot first of all. We have a hurricane, which actually, when you think about magicians and magic, a hurricane in New England is pretty down-to-earth and realistic. There's not so much magic in it. But Charles and Henrietta end up with their chicken coop in a tree at Mr. Camphor's, and they are actually reluctant to come back. They're enjoying their chicken coop in the air in the tree, but Freddy and others urge them to come back, and they finally do. Another person that appears, or animal that appears here, is Minx, who's Jinx's sister, and she's as annoying as usual, and she almost leads to Freddy getting into a major problem. Now, the main plot is when Freddy meets Zingo the Magician, who is traveling with the Boomschmidt Circus. Zingo is thoroughly mean and evil. He insults both Leo the Lion and Boomschmidt. And there's some talk that Boomschmidt has let Zingo go because it appears that Zingo has been stealing the proceeds of the circus. Now, Zingo has a rabbit, one of these rabbits that come out of a hat, named Zingo's rabbit's name is Presto. And as part of the process of meeting the people, Freddy comes in touch with Presto. And Presto turns out to claim that he's going to teach Freddy magic tricks, but he's really a spy for Zingo. And Presto apologizes to Freddy from time to time, but it appears that he's still working with Zingo, and we don't even get a resolution of whatever happens to Presto. Freddy gives a magic show where Presto has shown Freddy some tricks, and Presto also brags to the audience that anyone who knows how to do the tricks, then Freddy will award them with $5, of course. Freddy didn't know that that Presto was going to say that, and Zingo was able to come up and get all the tricks and explain all the tricks, and he takes $130 off of Freddy. And then Minx, trying to get back at Jinx and Freddy for some slight, tells Zingo about the First National Bank, that Freddy has money in the bank, and Zingo tries to break into the bank. But this is actually a better part of the story of how Freddy stops Zingo. And Freddy discovers a black hat that Zingo wants, and Freddy finds out that in that hat is some of Boomschmidt's money. So he's recovering money for Boomschmidt. And Freddy is later recognized by Zingo, and Zingo essentially beats him up. He slaps him around and pinches him. Then Zingo tries a magic show, and Freddy gets his money back by showing up Zingo, and Jerry stings Zingo, and Zingo has to eat his magic hat, and he has to pay one of the people back that he's been avoiding paying, and he leaves town. So that's essentially the plot, kind of a pushing and shoving type of thing. Now, there are very good characters in this for a book that kind of not the best. Has terrific characters. one of the cute ones, for just a sentence or two, is a Mrs. Hattie Bland, and she's visiting her grandson in Schenectady. He comes from California, and she faints when she's driving along the road, and she sees Freddie wearing a bright-colored sports coat, and Freddie helps her out, and she's so impressed with Freddie that she decides to move from California to Centerboro, and she lives down the street from Mrs. Underdog. Old Wibbly, the owl, appears from time to time, and one time he has Zingo's gun and talks about his attempt to shoot field mice, and the house mice don't like it. He raises an issue of Zingo eating his ham in front of Freddie, so you have that whole thing about Freddie and ham. Leo, the lion from Boom Schmidt Circus, has lost his mane during this hurricane, and he's concerned about the loss of the mane and wears a wig, and he also warns Freddie about Zingo. The sheriff appears, and he is trying to get Zingo to pay his hotel bill, and Freddie does a nice little thing in here about who ate the blueberry pie, which of the prisoners ate the blueberry pie, and Freddie has them stick out their tongue, and he is able to find out which of the prisoners ate the blueberry pie. The sheriff is also called to settle a claim that Freddie shoplifts, and he's worried about Freddie and his dispute with Zingo, and also mentions that grudges are bad. We meet Mr. Metacarpus, who owns the Busy Bee, and he's kind of a wishy-washy character. His slogan is, "The customer's always right, but never admit it." And he doesn't believe Freddie being innocent of shoplifting, and he lectures Freddie. And finally, there's the appearance of Ollie Groper, who is the proprietor of the Centerboro Hotel. This is the first time he appears, and he loves writing about, and Brooks loves writing about Ollie Groper, and he, as we know, Brooks was a student of words, and if you don't understand him, just consult a dictionary, and Brooks called him a sesquipedalian. The sheriff says that Ollie Groper got a dictionary by a tail when he was in school, and Ollie actually has a last word, elaborate word in the book, to which Freddie says, "Why, sure," and Brooks adds, "What would you have said?" Now, the one other thing in this book which makes it good is some of the poems, and this Michael Cart puts in his book. This is a quote from one of the poems, or a portion of the poem. "When life is its darkest and everything's black, I don't want my friends to come and pat me on the back. I scorn consolation, can't they let me alone? I just want to snivel, sob, bellow, and groan. For before you can rise, you must drop. If you hadn't hit bottom, you can't reach the top. Then pretty soon when you've got me below, the point where my misery normally go, I begin to feel better. I'll shake off my woes, and I'll haul off and give you a sock in the nose, by which you will know that your duty is done." So, actually, coming back to Brooks, we see at the end of the book that Freddie feels sorry for Zingo. He gives him some money as he's leaving town. And the next book or two, Freddie plays football. We have a similar type of thing with Mr. Doty, and where Freddie hopes that he does better. And this is the Walter R. Brooks approach to things, that it's better to reconcile if possible. And in this book, Freddie has learned compassion.